the 20th day of Mar Cheshvan, and we have just begun, as of yesterday, we've just begun the 5th parak of Maseches Pesachim, the parak of Tamid Nishchad, and let's send out the link here. There we go. Says the Gemara. Recap. We are discussing the timing of the Korban HaTamid at the various points in the year. The Mishnah had told us that the Tamid is usually shechted at 9.5 hours a day, meaning the preparation begins at 8.5 hours a day, and on Erev Pesach, it is shechted at 7.5 hours a day and brought at 8.5. And Erev Pesach that fell out on an Erev Shabbos, the Tamid is shechted at 6.5 hours a day. That is the earliest time that it could possibly be prepared, meaning it's prepared at 6.5 hours a day, and it is brought on the Mizbech at 7.5 hours a day. And then we had seen a brisa. The brisa told us, Kisidur b'chol kach sidur b'Shabbos. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva Omer Kisidur b'Erev Pesach. And now we are trying to understand what exactly this brisa is telling us. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom of Nun Ches Amud Aleph. Abaye has just presented his opinion, and Masiv la Rava. Rava is going to strongly disagree with the opinion of Abaye, saying as follows: Midi Rabbi Akiva Kisidur be'erev Pesach shechalios be'erev Shabbos Katani. Did Rabbi Akiva say in this brisa the way that it is brought on erev Pesach that fell out on an erev Shabbos? Kisidur be'erev Pesach stomach Tani. He says the same way that it is brought on an erev Pesach, not an erev Pesach that falls on an erev Shabbos, and therefore Abaye's opinion does not tie in well to the language of the brisa itself. Ella Amar Rava. Rava says as follows. We are 5 lines up from the bottom of the page on Nun Ches Amud Aleph. Ella Amar Rava. Rava tells us like this. This is what the brisa is saying. Kisidur b'chol da'alma. The same way that it is brought on a regular weekday, every regular Monday and Thursday throughout the year, which would be at 8.5, 9.5, meaning shechted at 8.5, brought at 9.5. So too, that is exactly the same time that it is brought on a Shabbos Erev Pesach. Why? Because a Shabbos Erev Pesach, there are no nedarim and nedavos to bring. You don't bring additional karbanos. So there's no reason to bring the Korban Pesach early, to bring the Tamid early, finish at the regular time, and then bring the Korban Pesach thereafter. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva tells us, Kisidur be'erev Pesach. No, you have to do it a little bit early, not at 8.5, 9.5, but 7.5, 8.5. Bring it an hour early, Kisidur be'erev Pesach. Umas nisin dikdani ben mechol ben Shabbos, and the Mishnah that tells us that this is the way that the Korban Pesach, that the Korban Tamid is brought. Bein b'chol bein Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva, this is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Meaning our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva. Abaye wanted to say that the Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael. Says Rava, no, the Mishnah has to be Rabbi Akiva. But my Miflagi, so what's the disagreement here between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael? Rabbi Yishmael says that during the week, according to Rava, that on a Shabbos, the Korban Tamid is going to be brought at the same time as during the week, and according to Rabbi Akiva, the Korban Tamid is going to be brought a little bit earlier, an hour earlier. But my Miflagi, what are we concerned about? B'michmar bisra Miflagi, we are worried about the spoilage of the meat. We're worried that the meat is going to rot. This is Rabbi Yishmael's opinion. We're worried that the meat is going to spoil. Rabbi Akiva, because you can't do anything with that meat, it is Shabbos, and if you have an extra hour, so we're worried that the meat is going to end up spoiling. Says Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael savar chayshinu lemichmar bisur. Rabbi Akiva savar. Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion lo chayshinu lemichmar bisur. We're not so concerned that the meat is going to end up spoiling. Says the Gemara. Well, okay, according to Rabbi Akiva, turning onto Nun Chesam Beis, if we're really not concerned that meat is going to spoil, so why not bring the Korban Tamid an hour earlier and shecht it at 6.5 hours of the day? And if you shecht it at 6.5 hours of the day, and you put it in the mizbeach at 7.5 hours a day, you have an extra hour for everybody to bring the Korban Pesach on Shabbos afternoon. Everybody's going to have a ton of time. They're going to be able to extra hour. It's going to be great. So he says, no, it's true. In theory, you'd be able to do so, but kasav musaf and kadim bazichin. Now he holds that the musaf has to come before the bazichin. As we mentioned yesterday, the bazichin were the incense that was brought together with that came together with the lechem apanim, and the korban musaf, which can only be brought after midday, has to be before the bazichin, and the bazichin take time as well. So kasav musaf and kadim bazichin, and then the Tamid Shel Ben Arabaim can only be brought after that. Musaf and Korban Vazichin. So Avilahu Musaf B'Sheish. So you bring the Korban Musaf at midday exactly. Vazichin B'Sheva, and then an hour later you're going to bring the Vazichin, and V'Avilei Tamid B'Sheva Merza, and then you can bring the Korban Atamid at 7.5 hours of the day. Maseches Rabba Bar Ula. Rabba Bar Ula disagrees with Rava. He says, I don't understand. Midi kesidur b'chol kach sidur b'Shabbos be'erev haPesach divrei Mishmal Gedani. You want to reinterpret the brisa as saying kesidur b'chol kach sidur b'Shabbos be'erev Pesach? It didn't say that in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yishmael did not say that it should be the same way that it is on a weekday. Kach sidur b'Shabbos be'erev Pesach, the way that it falls out on a Shabbos erev Pesach. And that would be the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. The way that it's brought during the week is the way that it's brought on Shabbos Ketani. That's what the Brisa says. In order to fit in better with the language of the Brisa, we now have a third interpretation of what is going on in this Brisa. This is how we should read the Brisa. The way that it is brought on a regular weekday, is the same way that it is brought on a regular Shabbos, meaning at 8.5, 9.5. That is the same din on a weekday and on Shabbos. No change at all. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Kiva holds the same way that it is done on a regular erev Pesach, meaning a regular erev Pesach that doesn't fall out on a Shabbos or near a Shabbos. The same way that it is done on the same way that it is done the same way that it's done on Shabbos is the way that it's done on erev Pesach. Kasidur b'Shabbos, da'alma. Kasidur b'erev Pesach, da'alma. The way that it's done on an erev Pesach, meaning erev Pesach at 7.5, 8.5. Kasidur b'Shabbos, da'alma. That's the way that it's done on Shabbos. Shabbos and erev Pesach are the same day. So the machlekes, according to Rabbi Barula, is: does Shabbos follow weekday rules, or does the Shabbos follow erev Pesach rules? And the Mishnah that says that this is when how it is brought bein bechol bein b'Shabbos divrei akolhi. That is that's the unanimous opinion, because they're not talking about erev Pesach at all. There's no discussion about erev Pesach in the Mishnah. And if that's the case, so then what's the disagreement between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Ula tells us, what are we concerned about? Bigzeres nadarim, nedavos and nadarim kamifligi. They are arguing about whether or not there was a gzera made. There was a rule that the Chachamim made, a din midrabanan, with regards to nadarim and nedavos. What's the concern? Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion gazrim Shabbos atuchal. Rabbi Shmuel says that we make a decree, that the Chachamim made a decree on Shabbos because of weekdays. So what's the concern? If we allow the Kohen to begin the Tamid Shel Ben Arabaim at 7.5 hours of the day on a Shabbos, so in Shabbos or Pesach, then he might do that. He might do that. He might end up doing it at that same time on a erev Pesach. And then, what about the Nadarim and the Nadavas? They'll bring that afterwards. And then the Nadarim and the Nadavas are going to be puzzled. Meaning, we insist that the Korban Tamid of Shabbos is brought later in the day, so as to ensure that during a weekday there would be enough time for Nadarim and Nadavas that you keep the standard timing as much as possible. Rabbi Kiva the opinion like we don't make such a gzera. We're not so worried about that. So Eloi Gazrina, and if we don't make such a decree, so then why don't we just bring the Korban Tamid at 6.5 hours of the day every Shabbos? why are we delaying? There's no Nadarim and Nadavas. You can't bring personal optional Karbanas on a Shabbos. So it's the same discussion. With the same answer, that Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that the Musafin have to be Kadman Bazichin, Musafin B'Sheif, B'Sheish, Bazichin B'Sheva, V'Avil L'Tamid B'Sheva Mechza. That the Musaf is at midday, the Bazichin at the 7th hour of the day, meaning 1 p.m., and the Tamid is at 1:30, 7.5 hours of the day. Meisve. Now the Gemara now disagrees. Hold on a second. We have a brisa as follows: Tamid Kol Hashana Kula Karev Kil Chasa. The Tamid is brought all year according to its halacha. What is this halacha? Nishchat b'shmana mechza. It is shechted at 8.5 hours a day. V'karev b'tesha mechza, and it is put on the mizbeach at 9.5 hours a day. Uve erev Pesach and erev Pesach nishchat b'zayin mechza. It is shechted at 7.5 hours a day. V'karev b'chesed mechza, and it is put on the mizbeach. It is offered at 8.5 hours a day. Chalias b'Shabbos. What happens if it is on a Shabbos? So this is what our whole discussion has been. What is the din of the karban tamid shel ben harabayim on a Shabbos afternoon? Says the brisa kechalios b'sheni b'Shabbos. It is the same as if it fell out on a Monday, meaning any regular day of the week. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva says, "Kesiduri be'erev haPesach." That the time that it is brought on Shabbos is the same time that it is brought on erev Pesach, meaning 7.5 hours of the day. Bishlam el Abaye. This makes great sense according to Abaye. This is exactly what Abaye had told us. Nicha. This is good because Rabbi Yishmael says that if it falls out on a Shabbos, it's the same as if it falls out on a Monday, meaning that you bring it the same time, the same 8.5, 9.5 timing. And Rabbi Akiva says 7.5, 8.5. Ela Rava Kasha. This whole brisa is a stira against Rava. It doesn't make sense according to Rava. Amalach Rava Nana. Rava says to you, Lo tema kechal b'sheni b'Shabbos. Don't tell me that Rabbi Yishmael is saying that that Shabbos, the Tamid Shel Ben Arabayim on Shabbos is brought at the same time as a sheni b'Shabbos when it falls out on a Monday. Ela ema kesheni b'Shabbos de Alma. Say it is like a regular Monday, meaning an ordinary weekday that's not an erev Pesach. So, meaning what's the way of the Abaye wanted to read the brisa? Abaye wanted to say that Abaye wanted to read the brisa as saying Chalias b'Shabbos if it fell out on a Shabbos, meaning if erev Pesach falls out on a Shabbos, kechalias b'shen b'Shabbos, it is as if it fell out on a Monday, which would be the same time. Sorry, the way to read it is, according to Abaye, it would be the same time as if it fell out on a regular day of the week, meaning you bring it 1 hour earlier. That's according to Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva says, no, Erev Pesach as if it fell out on Erev Pesach. That would be Abaye, and it is a kasha according to Rabbi. Rabbi says, no. Don't read it kechal b'sheni b'Shabbos. Don't say as if Erev Pesach fell out on a Shabbos. And ema kesheni b'Shabbos alma. Say it falls out. It is as if it fell out on a regular Monday, meaning not a Monday Erev Pesach, but a Monday in the year, 8.5, 9.5. That's the time that you're going to be bringing it on a Shabbos, because there's no Nadarim, Nadarim, but we are still concerned, according to Rabbi Yishmael, in Rava's opinion, of the meat spoiling. You don't want to have all the Korban Pesach brought too early in the day because nobody can roast it until Motzei Shabbos. We're worried about that. But Rabbi Akiva says, no, you can bring it back an hour earlier. Says the Gemara, Meisive. Now we have a different objection, an objection that's going to be against the other side, against Abaye's opinion. We have another brisa. Chalias b'Shabbos, if it fell out on a Shabbos, kisidurei kol hashana kula. It is like the same order of the whole year. Kisidurei kol hashana kula. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. So we have another brisa. If it fell out on a Shabbos, it is like the whole year. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva says kisidurei be'erev haPesach da'alma. It is like a regular erev Pesach. Bishlam and Rava. This is exactly what Rava said. Nicha makes good sense. But according to Abaye, this is a big problem because Rabbi Yishmael, according to this price, is saying that the time that is brought on Shabbos is the same time that it's brought the whole year around, which would be 8.5, 9.5. And that's not what Abaye wants to say is the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. Abaye is going to say to you, don't say that it is like the order of the whole year. Don't say like the whole year, like a regular day of the year, but like the regular years. What's the regular year? Where Erev Pesach doesn't fall out on Shabbos. 6 out of 7 times it doesn't fall out on it doesn't fall out on a Shabbos. Or at least 5 out of 7 it doesn't fall out on a Shabbos or Erev Shabbos. Rabbi Yishmael. So both Abaye and Rava have to a little bit tighten up the brisa in order to make it fit with their shita. What we see here that there's 2 brises, one that strongly supports Abaye, one that strongly supports Rava, and both of them have to a little bit finagle with the lashon of the brisa in order to make sense of their opinion. But it's very clear that both of these brises cannot be accurate as they are read, because otherwise you would have a stira. So Rabbi Akiva says, "Kisidur erev Pesach shechalias be'erev Shabbos." That Rabbi Akiva says the way that it falls out on Shabbos is Kisidur erev Pesach shechalias be'erev Shabbos, where it would be at 6.5 hours, and that would be Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Now we have, so those are the 2 ways of understanding. Inconclusive in both directions. The Mishnah could either be Rabbi Shmuel or could be Rabbi Akiva, and both the brises could be read according to both Abaye and Rava. What is important to point out, and the Tosfos notes this, is that the opinion of Rabbi Bar Ula seems to have been summarily dismissed, because both of these brises are against the way that Rabbi Bar Ula wanted to explain. Nevertheless, says the Gemara, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom of Nun Ches Amud Beis with a new brisa. Tana Rabbanan. We have a brisa that says as follows: how do you know that you can never bring anything before the Tamid Shel Shachar, before the Korban Tamid in the morning? Tamid Lim, the pasuk says, "Va'arach aleh ha'olah," that you have to set up the olah on it, on the mizbech. My Talmuda, what does this mean? Amar Rava says, ha'olah olah rishona, means that the korban ha'olah, the olah tamid, has to be the first thing that's put in the mizbech. And how do you know that nothing can be put in the mizbech after the tamid shel ben arbaim? Talmud Lemon, the pasuk says, v'iktir aleha chelvei hashlamim, that on it is brought the chelev of the fats of the shlamim. My Talmuda, what does that mean? Amar Abaye says, aleha shlamim. On it, after the korban tamid shel shachar, there could be shlamim. That's where you could have shlamim. V'loy al chaver to shlamim, but not on its friend, meaning not on the afternoon korban. There's no shlamim that can go on the afternoon korban. Maskiv la Rava. Rava says, I don't understand. Abaye. Ema shlamim hu deloy nakriv. Yeah, shlamim. Maybe you can't bring a korban shlamim after the korban tamid shel ben harabaim, according to your drasha. But ha'olas nakriv. But maybe you can bring olas. Maybe you can bring other korbanos. Who says that you can't bring a korban that is not a shlamim after the Talmud shel ben arbaim? Ela Amar Rava. Rava says, hashlamim. What is hashlamim? It doesn't mean talking about the korban shlamim itself. It says hashlamim ala hashleim korbanos kala korbanos kulan. On it is going to be completed all of the korbanos. Meaning it's a drush on the word shlamim, not saying a korban shlamim, but saying shlamim, all of the korbanos are finished at that point in time. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue with the next brisa at the bottom of the Maseches. Tomorrow, everybody should have a